Yesterday we talked about a potential nerf coming to the M1 Garand, and honestly I didn't think too much of it, but lo and behold, here it is actually being addressed by Condry himself, as well as a few other topics of discussion, and this brought up the further extension that could not only be just a nerf is on the way, but a full-blown update and patch that is absolutely massive can and will be coming to World War II. So in terms of updates, we've had quite a few already. We just saw one with the ending of Winter Siege, and before that we saw one on the 21st in which it took care of some of the changes that we saw to the FG42, which was not secretly changed, by the way, with the ending of Winter Siege. A lot of people thought that, but it's exactly the same as it was since its nerf in December. But we also saw things like the M1928 fire rate and the MP40 fire rate being buffed, the machine pistol damage being lowered, the movement speed for the Lewis and the MG15 being raised, and the recoil adjusted for both those as well, and a few other minor changes here and there. But then before that, at the start of Winter Siege, was the last update before that, and this would be the biggest update and patch since that point in time. So this one on the horizon has a lot of stuff scheduled for it. It might even be the biggest to date within World War II. So in this video, I want to talk to you guys about when this will be coming and when we can expect it, what sort of weapon changes, what sort of content will be added, and what else is absolutely huge about this. So there's a lot to touch on, so let's jump right into it. So let's start out simple. When is this patch coming? Well, right now the official ETA is a couple of weeks. The next couple of weeks is what is mentioned by Condry specifically, who made a public statement on Reddit about this stuff, which is actually great to see, I think. I know that there are a lot of people out there that were hoping for way more transparency at the beginning of the game when the game launched with Sledgehammer, a clear channel of communication between the community and the developers, and that kind of feedback is something that everybody can hope for, but that's something that in recent times a lot of people may argue is not the greatest, but it seems like there's that attempt once again, which is beautiful. And having that clear channel of communication is absolutely huge and something that is always beneficial, both for the community as consumers and of course for developers to consistently improve their game by using our feedback to help determine where the game goes. But as for the timing, well, that puts us right in line for DLC 1, The Resistance for World War II, which makes incredible sense. He also refers to the Resistance event, which we'll get to in just a few, but we always see patches a few days before the map pack goes live, and that's to add content to the game, to make sure that everything with the digital stores are prepped and ready to go, and so that everything is ironed out and working smoothly for the release of that DLC map pack. Very similarly to how a retail store would, you don't first stock your items the second that they're scheduled to first go on sale. Instead, you stock and prep your orders about a week or so in advance, so you have that time to get ready to iron everything out, and so that everything can run smoothly when they're first about to go on sale. Same thing happens here with the DLC. It's exactly what patches and everything like that happens for these major title updates. Now with that said, the patches are major title updates, so it makes sense to have all kinds of key changes, adjustments, and content additions added in so that you don't have to push out updates every other day in small doses or something very similar to that sort of time schedule. I think as players, it's something that is, of course, nice to see ever-changing and evolving features and additions within games, but if you end up having to download something for a new update every single time you log on, it might be something that gets a little bit on your nerves. So having these all in one fair sweep is definitely a nice addition, I think, and makes complete sense, once again, rounding back to it. But that said, as well, if I'm not mistaken, from discussions that I've had with developers at the various studios, and previously with my contacts in the industry, each update actually costs a boatload of money to push through Sony and Microsoft for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And I'd also imagine that it's the same thing for Steam and PC's version, so saving costs with one large update as well just makes a ton of sense. So it's all inclusive. We're gonna have all kinds of stuff. So while there's no real ETA, it is labeled as the next couple of weeks, so expect it around that DLC 1 time frame for that to go live just very shortly beforehand. My guess probably being about a week, maybe about the 23rd or the 25th of January that we can see this update going live. But as for what's in it, well, once again, we talked about all these things being included into one major update, so there is a ton of stuff. Firstly, DLC 1, of course, that is the big, massive thing that a lot of people will recognize here with this one. The Resistance DLC, first on PlayStation 4, January 30th. Of course, while this might not necessarily open it up for Xbox One and PC users, it preps the build for the game that will be coming with this DLC, and it is quite possible that they still separate the DLC that you can preload a couple of days beforehand, but not with this update specifically, so it kind of is the primer, if you will, to end up having that be the base in which you can end up seeing the basis of the game going forward being set up by this, but then the DLC is added in a couple of days later as its own separate thing that you can preload once again. But that said, maps like Occupation, which is the Resistance remake, Valkyrie, Anthropoid, Operation Intercept for War, and The Darkest Shore for Zombies will be making their way to PlayStation 4 on January 30th and a little bit after this update. But the very basis of this will probably be added in with this update. As well, there's probably going to be new DLC weapons. That's something that if you guys remember back to the promotional artwork for the Resistance DLC, the soldier on the front behind the little previews of each map actually holds the Volkssturmgewehr, which once again, as we've talked about many times here up on the channel, if you guys remember, that is one of the weapons that was leaked from the beta that was not in the full build of the game, and of that leak, we've already seen the trench knife, the ice pick, the Sten, the GPMG, and the Gewehr 43, so this leak was credible. It's going to happen in which these weapons come, and with it being on the promotional artwork, I think that the Volkssturmgewehr is definitely going to be making it into World War II at this time with this update. And that also probably means that we're going to be seeing more collection items and a potential new events happening, which once again we'll get to in a few. But as for the weaponry itself, that's something that kind of tying this back in with yesterday's video, the M1 Garand was actually up on the table for something that is massively talked about within the community, and it's on the chopping block. But at the same point in time, it's also very, very important to remember that Condry said that not everything will be touched. Some of these adjustments that he mentions won't actually be made, but some will be. Nothing's really final as for what was described. He just kind of typed his thoughts aloud. So first up on the chopping block is the Kar 98K, in which Condry mentions that it is the second most damaging sniper, second only to the Springfield, but it has the quickest scoping time in the weapons class, in which they're considering an aim down sight time nerf. So it would take a hair slower to quick scope in or scope in general with the Kar 98K if this goes forward. The FG42, they actually even said maybe they took the FG42 nerf too far, to which they nerfed it into oblivion, in which they said they might need to find a median between where it was and where it is now, something that is kind of just that happy balance between making it something that is going to be used every single weapon, every single game, to now where a very small percentage of the people that I run into a game with use it. So kind of making it more viable, but not making it the most viable. Now the Garand is the next one up on the chopping block, to which he mentions that a lot of the community has pointed out that it's close quarters, very OP, it's a two-shot kill, and that's where it ends up becoming kind of an issue, is because at range you'll notice the recoil, and that was the base counter of the weapon and the damage properties that it kicks so much, but in close quarters you don't necessarily notice all that much kick because, well, any sort of shot up close is gonna do it, and two shots is something that does seem too powerful. But he ends up saying they might end up adjusting the fire rate, the pull-up time, and or the reload time, any of those three things being possible. But a final weapon that is up on the chopping block is the STG-44, which makes me happy in this context because he ends up saying they might need to make a slight buff to it to make it more competitive with the Bar, Garand, and the FG-42, if they end up adjusting things like how we just mentioned them. So it would kind of readjust the tables onto how these all would equal out, so then it would be buffed up to kind of be competitive with all of those after these other adjustments. So that's something that I'd be okay with a slight STG buff, but I know some people might be a little bit wary on that, so we'll see what happens in time. Now the next thing that we get into is potentially new game modes. They end up saying that they will be adding new modes for what is coming, and that leads into a lot of different speculation because, as we mentioned, there were leaks around the beta in the game code in which we saw a lot of stuff that came to the full game, a lot of stuff we've already seen, some stuff that has been released as DLC already, but some stuff that we've still yet to see anything on, and a lot of that deals with game modes. We've still yet to see a bunch of different modes like Lockdown, Blades, Air, Aces, and everybody's favorite, Infected. Those are in the game code for World War II. They're fan favorites and brand new modes that could very well be making its way into World War II for another event coming up, and potentially just maybe something that is stable after DLC 1. But right now, there really is no idea on what they could be, just the fact that there are a handful of things we've yet to see within World War II's game code. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is something called engaging events, as Condry mentioned them. And I'm going to read you this off because it's something that is very important, because it almost threw me off and it kind of tripped me up whenever I first read it. He said, "We're also working on the upcoming Resistance DLC 1, adding new modes and engagement events, plus a big in-game event that's coming up." So engagement events and a big in-game events are two different things, and they're the final two things I want to talk about with this one. Firstly, I thought maybe the big sort of event was the AA flak defense, whatever it was in headquarters, in which we've yet to see that, because that's something that has been pushed since day one of the headquarters, that's going to be a cool thing coming. That's going to be something massive for players to take part in, but we've yet to see it. But that said, they mention engaging events and a big in-game event coming. Two things, not one. So I'm guessing this engagement event is the AA gun event in headquarters, but the resistance event, as mentioned previously and earlier in the video, is what I think is this big in-game event, in which this is going to be maybe not on the scale of Winter Siege, but something very similar to that, in which we end up getting, once again, these collection items. We get special supply drops and bribes for DLC weapons that may be coming. We get new orders coming in Major Howard that starts a new cycle of DLC weapons. A lot of stuff is very much so on the table for potential options for this, but I think that this is what it's going to be. The Resistance event is going to be this sort of celebration of DLC 1. Whether or not they reskin stuff in the headquarters, I have no idea, but we may end up getting that stuff once again, like DLC weapons, DLC hats, contracts, orders, all kinds of good stuff pertaining to new content like these DLC weapons and of course DLC 1 Resistance. So that said, that is what we all have detailed here for us on the horizon. A major patch will be coming to World War II in the next couple of weeks. Once again, my guess is probably right around the 23rd or 25th of January, but that is sheer speculation and in no way, shape, or form is confirmed, just my educated guess on it. But that said, that's where we're gonna wrap it up here at this one. I want to let you guys know about this because, like we said, there is a lot of stuff, and it is very true. Because beneath all of this stuff on the surface, there's gonna be a ton of stuff that hopefully fixes performance and other bugs, like the spectating bug and the bomb announcer for war just screaming in your ear on some objectives. Stuff like that is hopefully all as well going to be fixed, but there's a lot of stuff coming. And probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest update making its way into World War II. So that said, that's where we're gonna wrap it up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. Is there anything in specific that you want, whether it be a new mode, a new weapon, a fix to a specific bug, whatever it may be? Let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. I would love to get your thoughts and feedback down there on this. But that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and if you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding World War II. Best class setups, tips, tricks, news, update videos like this. If any of it interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you do not miss a single thing. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. I practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. But all that said and out of the way, hope you guys have a fantastic day. Mine is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.